Welcome, Whānau, to this Warhammer Underworlds Battle Report. Game number 1 of the Warhammer Underworlds Battle League, which features 12 warbands fighting for supremacy within the mirrored city. Severin Steelheart leads his Stormcast defenders against the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Nagash has promised to grant any boon to the victor of the Battle League, so the warbands prepare to fight even against those they once considered allies. We'll be using the rules for Shadespire and Nightfall as we do not currently have Beastgrave, so we'll make best of what we've got, but sit back and relax. And if you want to see more from me, make sure to subscribe. I post weekly Warhammer videos and other tabletop gaming stuff such as, well, this, Star Wars Legion, Blackstone Fortress, as well as playing Let's Plays on PlayStation. So that if that interests you, check me out. I am the maoriwargamer. So let's kick into it. Turn number 1. Leading off is the Thorns of the Briar Queen as they face down against Steelheart's champions. So who will win, who will lose, we'll find out. Game 1 of the Warhammer Underworlds Battle League. So before we'll kick in, we'll just quickly take a look at the battlefield. So we have objectives 3, 1, and 5 here. 2 impassable hexes. We've got 2 hazardous hexes there with lava. And we have Steelheart, we have Angered, and we have Oberyn deployed here on this side. Up here in the lair of the Briar Queen, we have objective number 2 and 4. We have 2 hazardous hexes, immovable hexes there, and the chain rasps up in the back with the big heavy hitters of her warband. We've got the Everhand, we've got Varclav, and we've got the Briar Queen. So they'll be setting up, looking to make some big moves and cross into enemy territory, possibly to capture the objectives, possibly to kill people, who knows. But the big dogs in the front, little dogs in the back. So interesting deployment. We'll kick straight into turn number 1, activation number 1 for the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Alright, so activation number 1 for turn number 1. My opponent is moving this chain rasp here. He's got a wooden board nailed to his hand. He's probably crucified in his previous life. He's going to move 1, 2, 3 onto objective number 4. So pretty obvious what he's got there, but we'll see what happens. We'll end this phase and play any upgrades. Do you have anything to play? Alright, my opponent may have nothing to play, but I actually do. So I'm actually going to claim an objective, Sigmar's Bulwark. To fight the Stormcast Eternals is to break upon a wall of blessed Sigmarite. Score this in an end phase, which we're in now, if none of your fighters suffered any damage in the preceding action phase, which was mission accomplished. We just had a bit of an off-screen discussion about that, so 1 glory point to me. And then I'm also playing Inspiration Strikes. Inspiration can strike at the most unlikely of moments. Choose a friendly fighter, they become inspired. So I'm going to inspire Severin Steelheart. Boom, he's gold. Level up. Ding, ding, ding. Also going to play Unstoppable Strike. Stormcast Eternals are granted a fraction of the God King Sigmar's celestial power, enough to shatter the guard of all of the mightiest foes. So next attack has Cleave, and then Righteous Zeal. The Hammers of Sigmar were the first of Sigmar's mighty storm hosts. Theirs is the power of the storm. +1 damage to the first attack action with a range of 1 or 2 in the next activation, which we're going to head into now. As we activate activation number 1 for Steelheart's champions, turn number 1. Hefting his Sigmarite broadsword, the inspired Steelheart dashes across the battlefield, making a charge action, charging into the Everhand. Stormcast versus Undead. Severin Steelheart swings his blade, asking for Sigmar's blessing to give this wretched fiend a swift death. So rolling in, 2 blues. We're looking for hammers or crits. Double hammers, it's hammer time. So 2 defense rolls. Alright, so MC Hammer, champion of Sigmar, inspired with righteous zeal, powering his blows, has landed 2 heavy hits, dealing a total of 8 damage. My opponent will need to save both of these hits to survive. So rolling off them. Oh, and no, that shielding on a dodge. Plus I got cleave anyway, and that. So boom. Be gone, foul creature. Yeah. Bolt of lightning. Boom. Execution. And that is another glory point. 2 glory points to the Stormcast, 0 to the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Nice first activation. Going to the end phase for this activation, and then back in activation number 2 for the Thorns. Alright, so my opponent's played Spectral Touch. The grasping fingers of a vengeful geist can sink through armour to tear the flesh beneath. So similar to my card I played last turn, first attack has cleave, and he is going to charge in with the matriarch of this warband, the Briar Queen herself, is going to activate turn number 2. The Briar Queen lets out a ghostly wail as she sails across the air. 1, 2, 3, adjacent to Severin Steelheart, leader of the Stormcast. The Briar Queen raises her arm, swinging her whip into the champion of Sigmar. Imbued with the Spectral Touch, his mighty Sigmarite armour will not spare him. As she rolls in 3 attacks, hitting on swords or crits. Oh, whew. Okay, so just 1 attack, 1 successful attack. Now with the Spectral Touch, it does have cleave, so I can only save this one on an exclamation. Oh, it's the table. Damn. Alright, that's all good. All good. So Briar Whip does 2 damage. Steelheart has 4, so he's lost half his health. 2 remaining. And that'll be the turn for the Thorns of the Briar Queen, activation number 2. We'll go to the end phase and into activation 2 for the Stormcast. Activation number 2 for the Stormcast Eternals, Steelheart's champions. We did actually claim an objective. So from the previous one there, score this immediately if an enemy fighter is taken out by a charge action. Lightning strikes. Sigmar's storm will break upon the faithless with shattering force. So that gives us another glory point. We're on 3 glory to 0 as Angered, no shield, prepares to charge into the Briar Queen. 1, 2, 3. And she is going to swing in with her Sigmarite hammer, supported by Steelheart. So Sigmar tag team, rolling off. We're hitting on hammers. Oh, 3. We're hitting on 3 on hammers. We're hitting on crits, and we're hitting on support. Crit, hammer, support, 2 damage each. She is gonzo. How many defense rolls she get? She's rolling on 2. Alright, fine. So, bit of confusion from our end here. Just reading through the rules, it sounds like the defense successes need to outweigh or match the attack successes for the attack to be successful. So, from the way I read it, it meant that even though these 2 cancelled out, we're still inflicting 6 total damage because we still had 3 successes to 2. How we're interpreting it though is this one cancelled out that, this one cancelled out that, so only 1 successful attack, which was critical, dealing 2 damage, and we're going to knock the Briar Queen back. So that's how we're interpreting that. I don't know if that is quite correct. Let us know if it isn't. I appreciate your feedback. As we move into activation 3, turn number 1, Thorns of the Briar Queen. Activation 3 for turn number 1, Varclav the Cruel has moved through, making a charge upon the wounded Steelheart with his Watchman's Blade. 2 attacks hitting on hammers and crits. 1 hammer. Steelheart gets 2 defense rolls. He'll be defending on a shield or a crit or a support. Double shields. He's good to go. No worries at all. Doesn't even break a sweat. So in phase for activation 3, and then activation number 3 for the Stormcast. And a quick turn for activation 3 for the Stormcast as Oberyn moves backwards 1 step onto objective number 5. Move into activation number 4, fourth and final for turn 1 for the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Currently we're on 3 glory points to myself, Steelheart's champions, with 0 to the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Final activation for turn number 1. Chainrace Pierre moved on to objective number 2. And for my turn, I am simply going to draw a power card. Alright, pretty cool. And that will end round number 1. We'll check for objectives gained. Alright, so I gained immovable objects. So score this in phase if the same fighter has held the same objective at the end of 2 consecutive action phases. So action phase 3 and then 4 for the final activation. So that brings me to 4 glory. My opponent has gained hold objective 4, which I knew he had it. So that's all good anyway. So 1 to 4 balanced. What's going to happen now is we'll draw additional cards, get rid of our deck if we feel the need to, and come back, lather, rinse, repeat, round number 2, Warhammer Underworlds Battle League. Alright, so turn number 2, we've redrawn our power cards, redrawn some new objectives on both sides, spent some upgrades. So we've got Varclav has been given Great Fortitude. I've powered up Steelheart with Heroic Might. There's currently 4 glory points to Stormcast, 1 to the Thorns of the Briar Queen. And the Briar Queen, her army, her warband is riled up as they fight for the promise of Nagash's gift. They won't hold anything back. So knowing this, the Briar Queen wounded herself, 2 wounds left, after suffering damage from last turn, is actually going to move here and attempt to whip into Steelheart with her Briar Whip. Alright, so the Briar Queen, she is wounded, leader of the Thorns. She's attacking the wounded Steelheart. Briar Whip, 3 dice, rolling in. You're looking for swords, you're looking for supports, and you're looking for crits. Okay, so swords, supports, and crits. There we go. Oh, that's devastating for me. I get 2 defense rolls. Let's see what we get. Alright, 2 defenses. So cancels out those 2. This is the exact same scenario we were talking about earlier in activation number 3. But with this one... wait, I'll just see. I don't have anything. I've got nothing I can do. Severin's already wounded. And so her whip is going to deal 2 damage and actually will kill him.
Try kill him.
Yeah. So that's going to give a glory point to my opponent. And that will end the turn, the first activation for turn number 2. As we move into the end phase, you've got an objective. Yep. Alright, so opponent has claimed this objective, execution. Thou hast been marked, encroacher. Thy soul is damned. So score this in an end phase if your warband took an enemy leader out of action. So an additional glory point that quickly brings them up to 3 glory to my 4. And I'm going to suffer without Severin around. So see how we continue. Stormcast activation number 1 for turn number 2. Alright, and before the Stormcast activate, I'm going to play Great Concussion. A thunderous blast echoes across the battlefield, sending bodies flying in all directions. So Sigma, even in the depths of the mirrored city, his power still has influence. And with the death of Severin Steelheart, a mighty bolt of lightning comes striking down right. So Great Concussion. Choose a hex on the battlefield, then push all fighters 1 hex. In whatever order you choose, this push must move them away from the chosen hex. So boom, thunder crashes, pushing. This guy, Chain Rush, takes 1 damage. It's going to push this guy backwards as well, 1 damage. This guy, let's push him back as well. This guy, he can't go back any further. Oh wait, it went here. So it's going to push them. And it's also going to push Angered back. And Oberon is good. And that's a good place for us to move into turn activation number 1. I'm going to activate Angered. Angered is going to make a move. 1, 2, 3. She needs to get revenge for Steelheart. And she is going to swing her Sigmarite hammer. 3 shots, hammers, crits. 1 hammer, that's all we need. The Briar Queen gets 2 defense dice to roll. Briar Queen rolling in 2 defense dice. Double shieldies. Not quite, honey. And 1 attack, 1 damage, one successful attack, dealing 2 damage. That is going to kill the Briar Queen.
No! My powers have failed me.
For Steelheart. Yeah! Boom. Another glory point. 5 now to the Stormcast. 3 for my opponent. End phase for this activation, and we'll move into activation number 2. Alright, so as the Briar Queen left this plane of existence to be reborn again, to live this undying curse in the mirrored city, played Vengeful Curse. Even as they are cast out of reality, geists use the last of their strength to drag the living with them. So reaction, play this after an enemy fighter's attack action takes a friendly fighter out of action. Their attacker suffers 1 damage. So Angered takes 1 damage, leaving her with 3 health. And my opponent gets an objective here, Treacherous Foe. The dead care nothing for honor or mercy. Only let the living share their wretched fate. Score this immediately if your warband makes a reaction. So that puts them on to 4 glory points to my 5. So those scales are getting more balanced each and every turn as we move into the second activation for turn number 2. Alright, so Varclav the Cruel activating for turn number 2. He has buffed himself up with all sorts of upgrades. He's got Creeping Terror. To feel an ethereal being pass through one's body is to be chilled, touched by the chill of the grave. So he's going to make a move through Angered, passing straight through her body. She feels that chilling touch, and he rolls an attack dice for the first enemy fighter they moved through. On a hammer or a crit, that fighter suffers 1 damage. So to feel an undead being move through your body can do terrible things. So rolling hammer or crit, Hammer. Boom. So in addition to the vengeful curse, Ingrid has suffered another wound, bringing her down to half health, 2 health remaining. But what will happen now, as Varclav, the most senior of the Briar Queen on the field, is going to stab in with his Watchman's Blade. So he gets +1 to his attacks. So he'll be rolling 3 attacks with his Watchman's Blade, thanks to his upgrade, driven by hatred. So 3 attacks he will hit on hammers, crits. Rolling off. 2 hammers. Ingrid gets to make 1 defense. Oh, Ingrid's dead. Oh wait, unless you can get a crit. Crits. Oh, no. Varclav stabs deep with his Watchman's Blade, a rusted old knife that has claimed the lives of many victims. Pierces her Sigmarite armour, and the gripping curse of the Briar Queen who passed away claims Ingrid Bright Shield, or Ingrid No Shield. She will join Severin here amongst the fallen, claiming another glory point for the Thorns of the Briar Queen, and balancing those scales now, 5 glory to 5. Damn it, any objectives? Oh, alright. Activation number 2 for the Stormcast. Woo! So as we move to the second activation for turn number 2 for the Stormcast, quick scope of the battlefield. We have 4 chain rasps over here. We have Varclav, he's beefed up with all sorts of upgrades. And then over here, empty territory. Oberyn stands strong and defiant, his mighty 2-handed Grand Hammer ready to swing. So we'll move into his turn now. Alright, so I'm just going to draw an objective card for Oberyn's activation. Third activation for turn 2. And pass over to my opponent. Third activation, turn number 2 for the Thorns. They have drawn an objective as well. Passing back to the Stormcast, Oberyn is going to move 1, 2, 3 onto objective 1, and then passing into my opponent once again for the final activation for turn 2. Alright, so my opponent is going to draw another objective card, and I will draw a power card, and we will call it the end of turn number 2. Any objectives gained, we'll come back to you. End of turn number 2, I have gained a glory point holding objective 1. Drew that one out in my third activation. My opponent also gained hold objective 2 there. So that puts us on even glory again, 6 each. As we move into the final turn, we're redrawing new objective cards, new power cards. Final turn, Oberyn standing defiant against 4 chain rasps and Varclav the Cruel. He's got a tough task ahead of him. We're neck and neck whānau. So who will win, who will lose? Place your bets now as we move into the final activation, the final turn in this Warhammer Underworlds Battle Report. Oberyn the Bold, final champion of Steelheart's defenders on the battlefield. Spent those available glory. He's got Lightning Blast, he has Total Offense, he has Brave Strike. Oberyn the Bold, final champion for Sigmar, still remaining within the lair of the Briar Queen. He has watched his companions fall to the undead and hefts his hammer higher, ready to achieve victory for his fallen comrades. With the available glory points, he has also buffed himself up to go toe-to-toe with Varclav, who is also buffed with all the upgrades for his side. So I've buffed him up with 3 new upgrades to make him an even match. We've got new objectives The path is clear for victory. So can I achieve it? We'll find out. But my opponent also has some tricks up her sleeve as well. Varclav the Cruel leads the remaining chain rasps in the final turn for this battle. He's got Sadistic Strike, he's got Creeping Terror, Driven by Hatred, and Great Fortitude, so he is a big beefy boy. However, Oberyn has stolen the initiative for this turn and is going to kick us off in the final round of this battle report. Oberyn is going to move 1, 2, 3 onto objective 3 here, securing this, and lets out a defiant roar towards his enemies. They are a good distance away, so he might be able to escape unharmed. We'll see what happens as we go into activation 1 for my opponent. Alright, so before that, my opponent has played Drifting Advance. Inexorable and terrifying is the advance of the Spectral Dead. So my opponent's going to move the chain rasps up to 2 hexes. So we'll come back and start the turn after that has been completed. So my opponent has drawn another objective card instead of doing anything else for their first activation. So passing back to activation number 2 for the Stormcast. I will do the exact same and draw an objective card. So as we get to the final round, round 3, this is often where we make our final gambits, our final ploys, position ourselves, hopefully draw some objectives, change the balance of the game. Right now we are still neck and neck, so we're both drawing objectives, hoping to find something that's going to give us some big beefy points. So we might not have a lot of fighting. We'll see how it goes. We'll move into activation 2, final round for the Thorns. And again, the Thorns have just drawn their final objective card, so they've got no more remaining. They've got all their cards in hand and ready to go. So we'll see what moves they make as we move into the third activation, final round for the Stormcast. Alright, Oberyn is going to go on guard. So hefts his hammer. We're waiting for attacks on any sides. He is deep in his own territory though. These guys all across here, they've got a long distance to cross if they want to engage in battle, but he will let them come to him. As we move to activation again for the Thorns of the Briar Queen. Alright, so Thorns of the Briar Queen, Varclav is going to command the movement of the chain rasps. So he's going to use his action, push all friendly chain rasps up 2 hexes. So yeah, something's happening. My opponent's got all their objectives and know what they want to do. Alright, so the chain rasps have advanced, moving across the battlefield. This one here moving on to objective 2. And we've got 1 way into my territory now. As we move to the final activation for the Stormcast, 5 glory to 5 glory. I'm just going to draw my final objective. And that's the end for me. My opponent will make their final move as well. Alright, so my opponent's ended their turn on objective number 1, moving this chain rasp across and through there, over there, onto objective 1. So that's the end of the game. 3 rounds completed, 4 activations each. We're currently 5 glory to 5 glory. Didn't make any combat, so it's going to come down to objectives. Who's going to win? Alright, so hold objective 1 goes to my opponent. However, that brings him to 6. However, I've got objective 3, bringing me to 6 as well, and consecrated area. So Oberyn lets out a roar. This is hallowed land, heathen. Take 1 step further and feel the wrath of Sigmar. To score this, if there are no enemy fighters adjacent to your fighters, boom, and that's it. That's gonna break the tiebreaker. Funny though, it would have been close. Could have been a potential draw. My opponent had just some garbage objectives. However, they did have 1. that they could have got if they didn't spend all their time moving, drawing objectives, take the city. That could have been the difference between a tie or a victory. However, victory to the Steelheart's champions, victory to the Warriors of Sigmar. Yes, so victory to Steelheart's champions, who will advance to the next round. Their next opponent in the Battle League will be the Skaven of Spikeclaw's Swarm. So look out for that. That'll be in week 5. So this is week 1 of the Battle League. So we'll see Steelheart and his companions again very soon. With a decisive victory by Steelheart and his defenders, the Thorns of the Briar Queen failed to fire in this round. They had numbers, they had some early swift deaths, however, probably played too defensively in the end and should have started moving around rather than holding their position. So they'll learn from that, but it's the way the cookie crumbles. Inside the mirrored city, the forces fight endlessly, so I'm sure they'll have another chance to prove themselves and achieve victory. But yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode. Whānau, Warhammer Underworlds Battle League. Just a loose story, mix and match, just throwing warbands against each other, which I didn't have the opportunity to do when I was crafting my Shadespire narrative campaign. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that. I'll chuck some links up. So it's cool to test out different guys, play different warbands. Because I was playing the Stormcast, and so I like to mix things up, although didn't really do it in this one, but my fiance wanted to play with the ghosts rather than the golden guys, so I just have to obey. Whānau, hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, give it a thumbs up, give it a like. Tune in next week, Whānau, we have the Fast Riders, Hunter Vanguard Stormcast facing off against the Iron Skulls boys. So order versus destruction. Who will win? You got to tune in next week to find out. Subscribe to the channel if you want more tabletop gaming content. I do Warhammer videos weekly, Warhammer battle reports. Currently doing a Kill Team battle report between the Dark Angels and the Tau. We've got some big stuff coming up with the Ynnari, Death Watch. It's all going off here, Whānau. We're coming back to normality. I'm currently sitting on 343 subscribers, so I'd love a bit more support. Show your support for a humble wargamer on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at maoriwargamer, and check out my D&D content, Timestamp Tales. Yeah, just another plug there. But until next time, Whānau, stay safe, stay healthy, like this video up, and thank you once again for watching. I am your humble host, the maoriwargamer. Ka kite. Anō.